Hello YouTube. Today we'll be talking about Boothill and his kit, his relics, his Lightcone and teammates, and potentially for the first time we'll be talking about if Boothill is free to play friendly. So let's get started. So firstly, his basic attack is a normal attack. Whatever. We'll look at the enhanced basic attack in a second. So his skill targets an enemy character and you're basically in a standoff against them. Now you win the standoff by either breaking the enemy character's shield, which is the toughness bar above them, or by straight up killing them. When you win a duel with either of those two conditions, you gain a stack. And in a very simple way, the more stacks you have, the more damage you do. Now you can only get up to 3 stacks with this character, and the stacks are maintained throughout the whole fight. Now when you lock a character, you and the opposing character will receive increased damage from each other. Now you might think, why is that a good thing? Well, you have to forget that he's doing damage to you, but more so the fact that you're killing him before he can even damage you. Also with the lock-in is attuned, so the enemy is forced to attack Boothill. And if you want to change the target of your skill, all you have to do is break the shield of the opponent that you've locked in, or just straight up kill them. Now this is the basic attack that we've skipped. This will make more sense now. So once you lock in, your enhanced basic attack can be used. So pretty much you never want to use the normal basic attack. You just want to use the enhanced version. It does more damage than the normal attack. This is pretty much your main source of damage based on how many stacks you have. So as for his ultimate, it's not really a damage source of ability, but the main point of this is to apply a physical weakness to any target that you want. And just on top of that, you get to delay the opponent action. Now this obviously means that you don't need Silver Wall. You can pretty much use Boothill in any MOC event. Now we will look at his talent, aka the passive. There are, if you can see on his image, there are 3 stacks that you can get max. Now as I've said, the more stacks, the greater your damage. You also have to take in count that the more stacks, the higher your enhanced basic attacks break efficiency becomes. Now the character is pretty much built with break effect, right? And he is a physical character. So because he's a break effect sort of character, what you have to do with him is to make sure that you break the enemy's shield with Boothill. It cannot be anyone else. It has to be Boothill. That is his main damage source. Now, that is what we've been knowing in the entire time, right? Up until Boothill came out, and you can read it here. Even when the target's weakness is broken, his enhanced basic attack will still do massive amount of damage. So it doesn't specifically say it's a super break or anything, but he will do damage even if the opponent doesn't have a shield. And then, as I've said before, after winning a battle, he basically will keep his stacks onto the next phase. So here's something incredible about his kit. You do not need initially to have his ult to apply a weakness implant. When you're using his technique and when you go into the battle, you get to select from your first skill one opponent that you want to implant that physical weakness on, which is insane, right? It's a free way of getting your Boothill stacks immediately. So increases character's crit rate / crit damage by a certain amount of equal to Boothill's break effect with a max limit. So this is literally telling you, build Boothill through break effect. And because we've seen from his passive, there's a limit to the amount of break effect that he can apply. HSR is basically making sure that you still do an unlimited amount of damage with this crit rate / crit damage. So it's pretty much a hybrid. There's only up to a certain limit to how much break effect you can get with this character, of course, but that doesn't mean his damage is limited. You can still build crit rate and crit damage, and they're essentially showing this as a gateway for him to build crit rate and crit damage to boost his damage even more. Second phase, while Boothill is in the standoff state, reduce the damage he receives from targets that are not in the standoff. I guess it's great. It's basically saying anyone else who's not part of the duel will do less damage to you. It doesn't matter that much, but this is also a way for you to realize that you should be targeting initially monsters that are easier to kill. Not just easier to kill, but easier to break their shield. That way, honestly, is the easiest way you can get 2 stacks immediately, or at least 1. But you can easily get 2 stacks just from that. So, and lastly, when he gains stack, regenerates energy, it doesn't really matter. This isn't really that useful. Now for the Lightcone. So this is the part where we will question, is it worth building Boothill or even getting him as a free-to-play player? I'll explain everything in a second. Increases the break effect by 60%. Damn, that's a lot. I'm not even gonna try to undersell this. That's incredibly high. Increases the wearer's break effect by 60%. We'll do some calculations later, but that's an insane amount of break effect, especially for Boothill. His whole design as a Hun character, unlike any characters we've seen before, is based on break effect. He isn't someone that you can just build with crit rate and crit damage. He's much more efficient on break effect, and as he should be, right? The damage dealt by the wearers ignores 20% of the target's defense. This is just an S1. This is just a S1. That's incredibly high. The fact that the 20 is flat at S1 is insanity. He's going to be doing so much damage. There's no chance that any free-to-play build can ever outplay this sort of Lightcone. There's no shot. I'm not even joking. The amount of resources Boothill will be getting from this Lightcone is insane. When the wearer's break effect in battle is at 150% or greater, increase the speed by 12. That doesn't matter that much. But the 60% break effect for free, and you get to ignore 20% of the target's defense. That is insanity. I honestly, this is the best Lightcone you can possibly get for Boothill. Is incredible. I'm not even going to try to undersell it at all. So now we have the problem why this is potentially not free to play, to build, and so forth. So I'm going to be using Pridewind right now for the Lightcones, and if you check yourself, I've already done the checking, there is not a single hunt Lightcone that gives break effect. That's the problem. And honestly, until 2.2 or whatever it is right now, there's never been a need for a character to have break effect. So it makes sense why there's no 4-star Lightcones that give break effect, right? Is like Han characters have always been known for their crit rate and crit damage. That's how they do the damage. Never have we ever had a character that needed break effect as a Han character. So now, if you are still willing to pull for Boothill and you're still looking for a 4-star Lightcone, this is my only solution. You have to make sure that not only is your main priority break effect, but you need to make sure that your relics and ornaments also have crit rate and crit damage substat. That's very important, because the only way I see free-to-play players that are going to use a 4-star Lightcone to compete with the damage that I have seen, you need to increase your crit damage. There's literally no other way. It's the only solution I can think of for free-to-play players. So based on that, I will now give you my recommendation. Subscribe for more. I'm not sure if I've ever seen HSR character ever build this, but this is the only one that makes sense to me. So his skill, also known as his basic attack, will have his entire damage, not just his attack, the entire damage. So it's a whole damage multiplier of 48% as S5. If you have an S5, this is the best Lightcone you can possibly have. And this effect increases by an extra 48% when the wearer's energy reaches its max. So remember, you do not need to use Boothill's ultimate almost ever, right? You will always have to use his enhanced basic attack pretty much. So if you can, if you're thinking of the max potential damage you want to do, and even if it's for one turn, try to save that ultimate for something else and try to get the best utility out of this 96% damage that you could possibly do as a multiplier of your overall damage. And as my last Lightcone that I can think of, honestly, we have gone down so bad for this, because there's literally almost no Lightcone to build for him, is the 3-star Lightcone Adversarial. And yes, it has nothing to do with damage, I know. This, I'm telling you, this is the most non-free-to-play character that has ever been seen on this goddamn game. I can't tell you anything more. Now, for your planar ornaments, you want Talia, Kingdom of Banditry. Reason simple, 16% break effect, right? And when your wearer's speed reaches 145 or higher, the wearer's break effect increases by an extra 20. So that's around 36% extra damage. So for a DPS to be reaching 145 speed is a lot. I won't even act like that's easy. It's quite challenging. Now, this is why I've talked about the 3-star Lightcone. This basically gives you some sort of speed for the next 2 turns after you defeat an enemy. Defeating an enemy is not going to be hard with Boothill, but you want that speed in order to get that extra 20% break effect. Now, before I continue, I do want to say that based on rumors, these are not the best relics / ornament sets that there are for Boothill. In 2.3, I do believe there will be a new set for any break effect characters, which will be more and more beneficial for Boothill. So I do want to say that if you're someone that does want to invest in Boothill but wants to use as minimal resources as possible, the best advice I can give you is to not build him right now. Wait till 2.3 for those new relic sets / ornament, because the builds I'm going to tell you right now are look so outdated and bad. It's so crazy. Next, we're going to talk about the relic sets. I don't need to say much here. You want 2 pieces of FIFA Shooting Meteor and 2 pieces of Watchmaker. If you can't already tell, it's because of the break effect. There's absolutely no good break effect relics or ornaments as of right now. So my best advice is to wait for the new relics that are coming up with 2.3. And if you are going to use Boothill right now, don't try to invest too much into it. There will be better relic sets. Because as of right now, I'll do some maps in the screen. You'll see how much break effect you will get from both the relics and the ornaments passive, and the amount of speed you need to get that overall break effect is incredibly high for any DPS. So before we go into his teams, I do want to say that this break effect meta with Boothill and whatever characters are coming in later is the most fun and enjoyable type of team you will get so far, because not only does it do a lot of damage, it does a lot of unexpected damage, and it's much more satisfying knowing that when you break a character's shield, you are doing an enormous amount of damage. That's how the game should have been played from the very beginning, but now we're getting that sort of content. So firstly, the reason why the whole break effect meta is even a thing is because of the main character. So you need to know only one thing about this character, and is his ultimate. So this is only a level 7, but pretty much what it does is, as you apply the ultimate, all allies you have the break effect increased. But the point is that even though that the enemy's weaknesses are already broken, your characters will still do damage. Now, a last thing I want to say, that super break damage, as you can tell, scales with higher break effect and toughness reduction. Just so you remember, so when we talk about the next set of allies for Boothill, it will make more sense. So next best teammate is obviously going to be Gallagher. He's the only sustain right now that scales off of break effect, as you can already tell. Obviously not the best sustain that's ever going to be out there, but for now he will have to do. What you want to do with this character is pretty much the ult, really. His action, you auto, then ult, and I believe if you unlock his traces, you get to move immediately after the ult, so it heals all your allies. And because his scaling is based on break effect, he will actually do a lot of damage with the Harmony to Trailblazer. And lastly, of course, we have Ruin Me. I know some of you guys won't have her, I don't have her either, but if you are going to invest in this break effect sort of meta, you're going to need her at one point, and that's because her skill increases weakness break efficiency by 50%. That's pretty insane for characters that want to break their enemy's shield as soon as possible. And not only that, but she also increases speed by 10% for the team. That's also very necessary if you're going to unlock the second passive of the planar ornament that I talked about earlier on. So yeah, pretty sure I covered everything. Do invest in the characters that you want wisely. If I'm being completely honest, I've said it before, I honestly think Boothill is one of the hardest characters to build as of right now. Not only do you need a high amount of break effect, you also need crit rate, crit damage. Luckily his traces help with the crit rate and crit damage, but you still need it. And then you need 145 speed as of right now. Obviously, as I've said, there's rumors of there being new relics and ornaments that are pretty good for break effect characters. So if you're trying to maximize your potential on Boothill with the least amount of resources, I do suggest you wait for that. But yeah, as a last note, I do honestly think this break effect meta is definitely one of the easiest break effects. Like honestly, this is how I expected the game to work, you break the shield and you do damage. That's how you expect the game to work. Now that they do that, not only does it work like that, but it's also way more satisfying and fun. To know that you're doing damage as soon as you break the shield, nothing gets better than that, right? Hopefully in the future though, there are more Lightcones and of course Relics that would help with making the builds easier, but as of right now, it stands as where it is. So yeah, do invest wisely, and I hope this video has been of help to you. Do consider like and subscribing, it helps with the channel, and yeah, see ya.